All right. I tell ya, I recorded episode 1, knew what I wanted to talk about in episode 2, recorded episode 2, talked about the wrong thing, not what I alluded to in episode 1. So this is the steering wheel episode for you. Repair is like the steering wheel in the car. Last week, we talked about one of the biggest myths in relationships, that healthy couples do not fight. That is simply BS. It is not true. And I'm hoping that by the end of that episode, you realized healthy couples absolutely fight. They disappoint each other, misunderstand each other, and definitely accidentally hurt each other. And the difference is they don't avoid conflict, it's that they know how to repair. And so today I wanted to teach you one of my favorite metaphors that I just learned in Terry's program. One of the coaches shared it with us, and I loved her take on it. And I think it's so simple and it is so true. So I want you to imagine you are driving down the highway. You have one hand on the wheel and the road is straight. Everything feels pretty easy. Now imagine you look down for just a second. Maybe you're changing the radio, maybe you're reaching for your coffee, you're distracted, and what happens? If you're like me, you're trying to save your husband's food from a Christmas dinner at a community event, and now you're in the ditch. That was me. You're in the ditch, and you drift. You don't suddenly end up in the ditch, right? You drift just a little bit, and what do? You can make a tiny adjustment, and you barely move the steering wheel. Most of the time, nobody even notices. When you're driving down the road and you're trying to stay, like in your lane or whatever, nobody really notices those tiny micro adjustments you're making. And then you keep driving. That is repair. Healthy relationships do not stay connected because they never drift. Healthy relationships stay connected because they're constantly making tiny adjustments back toward each other. Most of those repairs are so small, you might never even notice them. Again, we talked about, like the 100 tiny paper cuts when you don't have repair. Micro repairs are like maybe you got defensive and 20 minutes later, you're like, hey, I think I got defensive earlier. I'm sorry. I feel XYZ. I understand how that must have felt for you. Something like that, right? Tiny repair. You apologize to them. Maybe your partner looked hurt. You reach over, you touch their hand. Tiny repair. Maybe you're at family dinner and mother-in-law makes snarky comments towards your wife and you don't know, right? Or towards you, and then your husband reaches over and pats you on the leg, like, I heard that. Or maybe he even speaks up and is like, hey mom, that's not cool. Right? These are all seemingly small moments that actually are big. And maybe you forgot to text or something, or your husband forgot to text. And all he does when he gets home is he's like, I am so sorry. I know that probably left you wondering where the heck I was. These are all just kind of small little moments that we can have, these little micro repairs. And I'm going to tell you, relationships are not built on big romantic gestures. Just like they can die by a tiny 1,000 paper cuts, they can also be built by thousands of tiny repairs. So if you repaired every 7 out of 10 tiny paper cuts, really the statistic is 51% of the time. So it's not that much. It could be 5 out of 10 paper cuts, right? If you repair those tiny little paper cuts, you're not going to get to the big giant wound. People ask me all the time, why am I so resentful? How did I get here? I don't understand. I had one client who was so resentful, so angry. She felt like she had been duped into her marriage, into having kids, all of these things. And it wasn't because of one giant betrayal. It is 1,000 little moments that never got repaired. Dishes getting left, right? The eye rolls, forgetting to text when they're going to be late, interrupting you and talking over you when you're trying to talk, criticizing you, scrolling their phone while you're handling the nightly chaos, getting defensive. One of those by itself is probably not a huge deal. But now you stack hundreds of them together over a long period of time, and eventually your nervous system starts to believe that maybe I am not safe here. That is resentment. That is where it creeps in. And the piece that really changed everything for me is when you accidentally drift into the next lane, you know you're planning to come back over, right? You drift over and you have the other driver coming towards you. You know you're safe because you're going to get back into your lane. You don't panic. You maybe say to yourself, oops. Or if you're like me, I'm like, oh, sorry, sir. Get back into your own lane, right? But now imagine driving and the car in the other lane is drifting into yours. Do you know they're coming back? They're going to go back into their lane? No. You don't know if they're texting, falling asleep, having a medical emergency. Maybe they're drunk. You don't know. All you know is that they're coming toward you, and what happens? Your nervous system lights up and your body is now in preparation for danger. This is exactly what happens in relationships. When your partner gets defensive, when they shut down, when they criticize, roll their eyes, your nervous system isn't like, oh, they'll probably come back in a minute. It thinks something feels unsafe here. And this is why repair matters so much. Repair is what tells your partner, hey, I'm coming back. And I also want you to notice, I did not say repair means fixing everything immediately. That is not what repair is. Repair is coming back to connection. So sometimes it might sound like I'm way too activated to have this conversation right now, but I do plan to come back to it tomorrow in 30 minutes. That is repair. And if we're going to come back to it tomorrow, it's like, okay, want to go watch a movie? Want to have some popcorn? Want to have some tea? That's repair. It's like being able to sit with each other in the discomfort of that, right? It might feel a little awkward at first to be like, okay, this still feels kind of unresolved, but knowing we're too activated to talk about this right now, we're going to talk about it tomorrow, and right now we can stay connected. This creates more safety in the relationship, and it changes everything. Repair is not pretending nothing happened. It's not sweeping it under the rug. And it's definitely not like just being like, can we just move on? Again, that's sweeping it under the rug, right? Repair is acknowledging I drifted into your lane, I hurt you, and I am coming back. So if you're the one who is getting activated and you need to take a little bit of a break and say, can we come back to this tomorrow? I'm feeling too activated to have a good conversation around this, then you do that. Some of you are probably listening and thinking, hey, Amanda, this makes complete sense. But when I'm actually upset, I don't remember any of this. Me too. There is a reason for that because during conflict, there is another part of you driving the car. And it is not your wise adult. It is what we call in RLT your adaptive child, your inner 9-year-old who grabs a hold of that wheel and tries to take over. Okay, but we're going to talk about that next week. But I also want you to understand that if you don't remember all of this when you're in conflict, that is totally fine. Do you want to know what I have done? I have pulled up the steps of the feedback wheel. We're going to get into the feedback wheel in a couple weeks. I wanted to walk you through like these steps first and just let you know what repair is. Next week, we're going to talk about your adaptive child and kind of how to get her out of the way. And then we're going to talk about what the actual feedback wheel is and how to have repair. But if you do want to like dive in and understand sooner and like read about it and know the steps, I do have a repair guide. I will drop the link in the show notes and you can go snag it. It's less than $10. It's $9.99. So it's an incredible guide for you. And I have actually had clients who print it out and have it in front of them when they're practicing it with their partners. And I have had it just like saved on my phone. And when I want to utilize it with my husband, I just pull it up on my phone and I go through the steps. And I have to tell you that it's going to feel so awkward at first. Repair itself is going to feel so awkward at first because you've never done it before, because you've never been modeled healthy behavior. You've never been modeled healthy conflict repair by your parents, most likely. Our parents in this generation were so happy living parallel lives. But what I am finding is that in today's generation, we want like passionate relationships into our 60s, 70s. We have many women at pickleball because I love pickleball, and it is a lot of like older women, and just talking to them about their relationships. And we've talked about like patriarchy and how patriarchy is very damaging to, all relationships, but how some of them have even said, oh yeah, my husband's upset that I'm playing pickleball again because that means I'm not home to make him lunch. And so it's just really interesting to look at, right? Of what are our beliefs around relationships and how are we showing up in them? And our parents just didn't have those deeply intimate relationships with the passion and the things that we really want now, like a true partnership. We want to feel like a team, conquering life with our partners and creating something amazing with each other. And so that's just a little side note there. But next week, we are going to talk about why two very smart, very intelligent adults start acting like they're 8 years old. Why, maybe you're the chaser and your husband shuts down. Maybe you say things that you don't actually mean, or why you completely forget every relationship skill you've ever learned. And when you understand what is happening inside your nervous system, repair is going to become so much easier. Because when your adoptive child enters the room, you both might as well like hop on the couch with a bowl of popcorn and just like watch the show. Okay, so we're gonna figure out how to get out of that cycle. And then until next week, I just want you to pay attention this week, not to the big fights, but I want you to pay attention to the tiny moments that happen in your relationship and ask yourself, where could I make one small adjustment on the steering wheel today? I'll give you one thing that I'm going to leave you with. Healthy relationships are not built by perfect people. They're two imperfect people who get really good at finding their way back to connecting with each other. And so just kind of like noticing places that you could do these little micro adjustments or little repairs is like, hey, babe, I noticed I got snippy yesterday and I just wanted to apologize for that. I'm going to work on that. Right? We didn't even have to wait for him to come to us. We can do that with our kids. We can teach our kids repair. We model it with our partners. Because what I noticed in my own relationship is there was a lot of moments in my relationship that never got repaired. And then my husband and I were suddenly in this big mess and I was very resentful. And then we had a 3-month separation and he was an alcoholic and all of these things that played in the picture. And so we found our way back and now we can repair. But the other pieces too that I want you to look at that can start to help you shift things is appreciate your partner for what is here too. So oftentimes we get so hung up on like what's not working, what's quote unquote like bad, what we don't want. But it's like I was on a call with another client the other day and she was telling me all the great things that her husband does and saying, I don't know why I feel this way. And I said, well, when he does these great things, do you appreciate him? And she's like, well, I'll give him a kiss. I'm like, okay, but do you express it verbally? And she was like, well, no, because his love language is physical touch. And I was like, okay. So this is totally normal in society. This was new to me when I started doing it because she kept telling me it felt fake, it felt forced, it felt like it just didn't feel right. And I'm like, well, no, we don't ever force or fake something, but you just told me that you do feel loved and like seen and chosen and all of these things when he does this. So what's fake about speaking it out loud? It only feels uncomfortable because you're not used to doing it. And she was like, oh my gosh, I do think I could do more of that. So what I want to say here is also look at the good this week and offer appreciation. I shared this like several episodes ago, but my husband on Mother's Day, like planned out dinner, told me not to worry about it. And we hopped in the car to go somewhere and I looked at him and I was like, babe, it is sexy as hell when you own dinner like that and you just make it happen. And you will see their shoulders roll back, their chest puffs out a little bit, they sit up a little taller. Like it doesn't have to be these, again, it's not these big grand gestures. It's also, can we build up this relationship one tiny appreciation at a time? And so I just want you to notice both. I want you to notice this week, where you can make one small micro adjustment. And maybe that's you snapped at your partner and can you just, hey, I'm going to work on that. I'm sorry that I snapped at you. And offer more appreciation. Gosh, babe, that felt so good when you helped out with XYZ. When you handled bedtime tonight, oh my gosh, that was hot. When you handled dinner, that was so sexy. It's so sexy to see you bopping around the kitchen like that, just handling it. Right? Say it in a way, like when I first started saying it, I kind of wanted to like vomit a little bit because I was like, I don't normally talk like this. Now it feels so natural to me. And it only took like a week or two of doing it for it to feel more natural. So I want you to understand that at first it's going to feel a little bit weird, but then as you both like ease in, your nervous system capacity is going to expand and it's going to feel a little bit more comfortable and you're going to be able to do it more. So those are just my little tidbits to leave you with at the end of this episode. And I will talk to you in the next one. But if this helped you, if this gave you insight into yourself, if this helped you have a perspective shift on your relationship, please share it with a friend who you think would also benefit from the same perspective shift. Leave up to a 5-star review if that calls to you. It helps me get word out there. It helps my podcast grow. And then I will talk to you in the next one.